Hey everyone, I'm Matt Ford and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. I want to ask you a question, and I don't care if you're MAGA or progressive, Democrat or Republican. Is this what we want for our country? Federal agents shooting American citizens in the street? Because that's what happened in Minneapolis. Alex Pritti, ICU nurse, U.S. citizen, shot 10 times in the back by Border Patrol agents. 10 shots in 5 seconds. And within hours, the Trump administration is out there calling him a, quote, assassin, a, quote, domestic terrorist, someone who wanted to, quote, massacre law enforcement. They moved faster on the PR campaign than they did on calling an ambulance, which really tells you where their priorities are. But here's where it gets interesting. We now know from an internal government report leaked to Congress that federal agents said Pritti, quote, resisted arrest. That's it. Just resisted arrest. No mention of attacking officers. No mention of threatening them with a weapon. No mention of domestic terrorism or assassination attempts or any of that shit. So they lied. Kristi Noem lied. Stephen Miller lied. Greg Bovino lied. And they did it in perfect coordination, like some kind of fucked up barbershop quartet of bullshit. And look, I get it. Lying is kind of the brand now, but when you're lying to cover up killing an American citizen in the street, that's not politics. That's not spin. That's authoritarianism. That's what happens when accountability dies and power decides it doesn't have to answer to anyone anymore. So you've seen what happened to Alex Pritti, but what you might not know is the playbook they're using, the pattern, the system designed to avoid accountability. So let me show you exactly how this worked.
An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently.
I mean, come on. They didn't even try to hide it. It's like they got the same memo from the same PR firm and just hit send. Before any investigation, before body cam footage, before anyone knew the facts, they asserted intent. They labeled Alex Pritti an assassin, a domestic terrorist, someone who wanted to massacre law enforcement. And then it gets amplified by MAGA. Stephen Miller, senior White House advisor, tweets, quote, an assassin tried to murder federal agents, and this is your response? That's not evidence. That's not an investigation. That's branding. And then watch what Trump does. He posts a photo of Pritti's legally permitted firearm and calls him a, quote, gunman. Then, after bipartisan backlash, Trump backs off and calls it, quote, very unfortunate. And then, days later, Trump is back at it again, calling Pritti an agitator and perhaps an insurrectionist. That's not justice, that's political weather vaning. And before the investigation even starts, Vice President JD Vance goes on television and declares the officer has, quote, absolute immunity.
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity.
How did he know? The shooting just happened. But that's the move. Judgment first, narrative second, immunity locked in. Because once you brand the victim a monster, you never have to explain the shooting. And this is the pattern. Kill first, label fast, get MAGA media to amplify it. Lock the narrative before the facts are known. Folks, that's not accountability, that's message control. And when the backlash got too hot, they pulled Greg Bovino out of Minneapolis, sent in Tom Homan, changed the face, but the tactics, the immunity, the masks, the rush to judgment, that all stayed the same. Because this isn't about one bad commander, it's about a system designed to avoid accountability. a system put in place by the Trump administration. Now, you may be thinking, well, maybe Priddy did something illegal. Let me introduce you to FBI Director Kash Patel.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you wanted.
Okay, so the FBI director just told you it's illegal to carry a firearm and ammunition to a protest. There's just one problem with that. It's a lie. It's completely, categorically false. Alex Pritti had a Minnesota state permit to carry a concealed weapon. Carrying a firearm is not illegal. Carrying magazines is not illegal. And filming law enforcement in public, that's constitutionally protected speech. It is settled law. Standing nearby is not a crime. Filming is not a crime. Being critical of federal agents is not a crime. They keep using the word interfering because it sounds dangerous. But interfering with law enforcement has a legal definition. It means physically blocking officers, threatening officers, stopping them from doing their job. It does not mean filming. It does not mean standing close. It does not mean exercising your constitutional rights. And here's the crazy part. Even the gun rights groups are calling bullshit. The NRA, Gun Owners of America, the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, groups that I don't exactly agree with on very much. They all said the same thing. Approaching law enforcement while legally carrying a firearm is not grounds to be shot. Go figure. Now, if interference means exercising your rights, then the First Amendment and the Second Amendment disappear the moment somebody in body armor gets annoyed. And that's the point. This isn't about safety. Don't believe them when they're shoveling that bullshit. It's about control. This doesn't just hurt civilians, it puts local law enforcement at risk. Let me show you something from this weekend.
Think about this.
This is one of many.
In America,
Look at this.
look at these thugs. Look, and he comes out with a gun and he gets in front of the car. They're pointing the gun. They're telling her to come out. They're yelling at her. So what does she do? She's desperately calling the police, desperately asking people to call 911.
Let's be clear about what we just watched. ICE agents exit their vehicle with weapons drawn, pointed at a civilian over a traffic encounter. And because they're masked with no badge numbers, she couldn't identify them if she wanted to. That's not about officer safety. That's about making sure nobody can report when you fuck up. No name, no number, no accountability. And when you combine that with agents who are trained to draw first and think later, you know what? People die. When trust collapses, people stop cooperating. They don't know who to call. They don't know who to trust. And anger aimed at ICE spills over onto city police and county sheriffs. This policy isn't pro-cop. Professional policing depends on trust. You destroy that and everyone, and I mean everyone, is less safe. And then there's the way these guys show up. This is a soldier, an American soldier. This is an ICE agent. Can you spot the difference? Yeah, me neither. One of them is trained for combat operations in hostile territories. The other one is supposed to be doing immigration enforcement in Minneapolis, but good luck telling them apart. They're rolling through American cities, not responding to violent crime, not stopping armed terrorists. They're detaining people for paperwork violations while dressed like they're storming Fallujah. ICE is not the military, folks, yet they deploy like they are some occupying force. That's intimidation. That's the point. It's not policing. And it creates exactly the kind of environment where someone like Alex Pritti gets shot 10 times for holding a goddamn cell phone. So, Let me ask you again, is this what we want for our country? Federal agents shooting American citizens in the street and then lying about it? Deploying like an occupying army in American cities while dressed like they're invading a foreign country? Because if this is acceptable to you, we need to stop pretending we are a country of laws. We're just a country of whoever has the most guns and the best PR team. Folks, Americans are being killed by federal agents. And instead of accountability, we get smears, we get deflection, and officers get immunity. Donald Trump isn't putting out the fire, he's pouring gasoline on it. That makes civilians less safe. It makes local law enforcement less safe. And it puts this country on a very, very dangerous path. So, share this video, demand accountability from your representatives, and let the Trump administration know we're done being lied to.